go ahead and get started. Guys, for all of you who are on the call today, you probably have seen Angela before, but just for anybody who doesn't know who she is, I'll just give her a quick introduction. Angela is a veteran in the restaurant industry and has had a very long career of owning multiple restaurants in the Chicago area. Right now, she has a catering company, very successful catering company as well. So, has a lot of experience from uh, every aspect of running and operating and owning restaurants. So, today we have her on here talking about food cost. So we're just going to do this like a podcast style, just having you and I having a conversation, talking about food cost and the best ways that our restaurants can manage food cost and um, try to bank some more profits there. So that's just a little bit of an introduction, Angela. If you want to give yourself a little bit more background, so people know you know what the heck
Sure.
you're talking about, then we can dive in.
Yeah. Okay. So, like I said, my name is Angela Hepler, and I am a certified TRC restaurant coach, and I work exclusively with independent restaurants to transform their restaurants and honestly just get their lives back. My history involves 25 years plus in restaurant ownership. Obviously, I was been working in restaurants much longer than that, but I owned restaurants for 25 years in Chicago and now 30 years in total now that I own a catering company here in Michigan as well. So, I mean, basically what that means is I've seen, heard, felt, had every challenge that you face. I've had restaurants that failed. I've had restaurants that succeeded. I've been through COVID. I mean, I've been through pretty much anything and everything that you face. So I did retire in 2021 from the city of Chicago, moved to Michigan and opened my catering. Well, actually, my catering company was already open, but I went full time into just catering here in Michigan. And now I cater for the wedding business here in Southwest Michigan. We're the premier catering company, and I coach restaurant owners. And I work with Restaurant Growth and Donald Burns and help restaurants, like I said, transform the restaurants and get their lives back. So I am here today to talk to you about food cost. So, food cost is one of those. We talk about this all the time. Food is your actual thing that you sell. So I want you to think of like, Luke, I want you to think of like if you sold tires, if you were discount tires, you sell tires. It's your number one product. And often it gets thrown off to the side or not thought about because, we get so worked up into thinking about service. We get worked up into thinking about the concept. We get worked up thinking about saying yes to everybody all the time. And we forget about our most important aspect of making money, and that is selling the food and drink. And if you do not know your food cost, how in the world would you ever make any money? I mean, let's just bring in the tire thing back into line. Okay. Like you're selling tires, but you have no idea how much the tires cost. But you're like, it sounds like they're about $300. Yeah, I think I could probably sell a tire for like $300. There's no way a tire company would make that decision, but restaurants make that decision all the time. And I think a lot of it comes from this excitement for the service, for the concept, for the like this sort of like fulfilling this dream, and we forget about we actually need to know what our food cost is.
Yeah. What I mean, I was just going to ask you that. Why do you think that it's overlooked? I mean, is it because is it boring? Is it like the
Incredible.
minutia of that, or why is this so often overlooked if it's so important?
I think a lot of restaurant owners are artists in a lot of ways. We're chefs or we're entrepreneurs, and entrepreneurs are very creative people. Yes, there's entrepreneurs who are very much focused on making money, but there's this urgency to get this product to the market and to see how it does and to give this experience, and it gets overshadowed. It
Hmm.
also, the restaurant business is so freaking demanding. Like there's so many distractions. You got to do the schedule. You've got to, figure out the website. I mean, there's so many distractions that you lose sight of it. You lose sight of the most important thing. and you're a constant state of service. You're a constant state of, it's 365 days someone walking through your house. That's how I have to look at
Yeah.
it, you know?
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
toilets are breaking, the plumbing, like the basement's flooding, there's just constant pressure. And sometimes it almost feels like you're just playing a game of checkers, this
Mhm.
happens, you do
Yeah.
that, this happens, do that, and then you're not able to actually, have any strategy, you know,
Right.
and food cost
Yeah.
strategy.
Yeah. It's a funny thing that some of the most just fundamental important metrics in business can get overlooked. Just because of many different reasons. I mean, I can relate to that as well. A handful of years ago in our business, like our books were not accurate. Like we were 3 months behind schedule on those, and then but that's all that matters. Like that's the only thing that matters at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Obviously, we're in a better place now, but I do hear from a lot of our restaurants that we speak with that they not all the time. Some people really have it dialed in nicely, but more often than not, it seems like either people don't know what prime costs are, or they haven't measured them, or they are not measuring theoretical versus actual, which we'll dive into that stuff. But definitely an interesting phenomenon of like avoiding the most important thing. And
Yeah,
and
it's
and maybe
interesting.
it's avoided because it's the most important. I don't know.
I don't know. It's a lot of psychology in that, right?
Yeah.
But it's true. I did it myself. I did it
Right.
myself. I would just look at like what the average was on the street and just be like, oh, I'll be somewhere in the 50 cents higher or
Right.
lower. That's totally guessing. That is not food cost. Your food and your beverage is money sitting on the shelf. So like, let's think this way. If you were to buy a case of vodka, and let's just say it costs you $250, and your food cost is 20%, you could multiply that. Your theoretical food cost is 20%. You multiply that case by 5, and that's how much money you should make off that food, right? So every carrot, pepper, everything is money sitting on your shelf. And that's why it's so imperative that you understand your food cost.
Mhm.
So you can I remember thinking to myself, I could look on my shelf and look at a case of Grey Goose can't come in, or, El Jimador tequila or whatever. And I would know how much money I could make off that one case because I had done the food cost and I understood what that value was. And also when you understand the value, you protect it. You know what I mean? Like you
Right.
really
Yeah.
protect it. It's not just, I don't know, it just changes your
Yeah.
perspective when you really look into it.
100% agree.
Yeah.
So let's dive into like the meat potatoes of this and how this impacts profitability.
Mhm.
Can you speak to why and how much leverage looking at food costs and the impact that makes, and
Yeah,
how that can impact the bottom line?
yeah. So there are, we talk about there's two different types of food costs. There's what's called theoretical food costs, which is what it is in the perfect world, right? With perfect portions and with no waste, with nothing thrown out, with nothing cooked wrong, with nothing disliked and returned, with no employee meals, with, I hate to say it, employee theft. I mean, if you think that's not happening, you're completely
Mhm.
overlooking an important part of this. So that's your theoretical, like in a perfect world, what is the food cost before anything happens to it? And then there's the actual, which actual is the real deal. It's with, unfortunately, with all the things I just said happening. And it's the actual is what you see on your P&L statement, which is what people think is food cost. Yes, that is the actual food cost, but the theoretical is when it shows up and none of that other stuff happens to it that I just spoke about. So that difference between theoretical and actual is what we call the variance. It's that little space in between, right? And that space in between is profit. Let's say it's 8%. Let's say you're doing, $1 million in sales. 8% of $1 million is a lot of money, right? So that variance, that 8% is what you're after. That's what you're going to That's the puzzle. That's the problem. That's where you're going to try to find money, where you're going to try to control your food cost. But you do not understand the variance until you know your theoretical next to your actual. So that's where you find money. I mean, straight up,
Yeah.
you're gonna find the money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What would you say if 'cause I hear this a lot from some of our clients. They'll say something along the lines of, yeah, my food cost is 30%, it's really good. What would you say if you heard something like that?
Yeah, I just kind of giggled because it's not, you don't know it's good. You have no understanding of whether it's good because well, unless they've done their theoretical food cost, and their theoretical food cost is, let's say, 27%, and there's a 3% variance. Yep, your food cost is great because you're controlling all those points of where food cost is being destroyed, right? So
Mm,
you have the ability, you're doing something right in controlling those. And I'll talk about the 7 ways food cost is affected. Well, there's actually 40 different, we call it 40 thieves of food cost in the restaurant growth coaching program, but I'm going to
mhm,
down to the seven the 7 ways it's most affected.
mm.
But yeah, so you can't really, I mean, I've had people say that to me too, and they have no clue what their theoretical is. And I was like, well, let's get the theoretical done first, and then we can talk about whether or not that's actually good. It's almost like they're just accepting like, just accepting mediocrity, or like they're just kind of saying, well, it seems pretty good, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think a lot of it comes from just lack of knowledge too. Like, um, even though it's a fundamental terminology, in the restaurant space, uh, people get into restaurants for a lot of different reasons, right? And so some
I
of
do.
them might be a first-time restaurant, some of them might be they have, $10 million in revenue, still not measuring those things. I know that you guys have a lot of stories of, people doing 4, 5, $6 million a year, never doing their books, never looking at numbers, so much money just sitting there being burnt. Which is great. In a way, it's great because if those things are addressed, we can um there's so much money to just be unlocked and not
Yes,
wasted
that's a
anymore.
great way.
Yeah.
That's a great way of saying it. Unlocked.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Because it might not be getting more customers, getting more people through the door. It's one thing to do, obviously. Um, but one thing that we had realized, this is about what, 11 months ago by now. We had realized with a lot of our clients, not all of them, but a good majority of them, we would bring them a lot of new guests, but it didn't impact their profit margins, as much as we hoped it would,
Yeah.
because the new customer inflow, one piece of the equation, like what happens after that? Are people coming back? Is the pricing correct? All
Right.
that
Right.
stuff underneath the hood, as I like to say. So that's why we had, partnered up and, said, hey, let's get some coaching involved here and let's see
Yeah.
if we can
Super
help
smart.
in other ways. So let's talk a little bit about that. I mean, if you want to dive into what you call the 40 thieves of food costs or the top 7, I
Yeah.
think that would be really helpful to understand.
Yeah. Well, I want to speak a little bit about what you just said. So,
Mhm.
the marketing piece is very important, as you know, turning on that marketing machine. But if there's a whole bunch of holes, then it just means you're busier. It doesn't mean you're making more money. It just means
Right.
it's flowing out faster. Yeah. So, good point there, because you really do need to have all your ducks in a row before you turn that on, because otherwise you just, you know, running yourself
Right.
more,
Right.
and
Yeah.
money's just flowing out. Right. So,
Right.
thieves of food costs. I'm not going to go over all 40, but I will start with the 7 that I think are the top. So the very first thing is recipe cards. So without a recipe, imagine your prep staff downstairs. One person makes, I'll just give you an example. I can think of Range Hall Burger Bar, one of my burger bars, and the chili would be inconsistent. Okay. If Laura made it, seemed like it was spot on. If Laura wasn't there and, Jose made it, it seemed like it had less beans. So Laura's using 2 5-pound cans of beans and he likes his more meatier. So what does that do to the food cost? Changes the food cost, right? Because the beans are less expensive and they make the yield bigger, right? So the food cost changes. So recipes, recipe cards, all printed out, all look the same, all used, always in front of them. Nobody winging it. Even if they think they know it, they get in conversation. They might forget a can. Like recipes are imperative. So, and then the other thing is plate specs. So if I'm picking up a jambalaya, I had a New Orleans restaurant on the line. I need to know how many ounces of rice. I need to know how many pieces of shrimp. I need to know how many ounces of red peppers and green peppers and garlic and celery. All that stuff has to be specced out, and then there needs to be a picture of it. I should see actual picture of the jambalaya in the iron pan with the avocado spread over the top of it. Because is it a half avocado or is it a quarter avocado? Is it sit on the left side or is it sit on the right sides? All these things make a difference. Not only to make a difference in food cost, it makes a difference in consistency with your guests. So the thing about consistency is, yes, you need to be consistency also with food costs. But if I've had the jambalaya and I love it, and I come back that second time for that jambalaya and it's not the same, I may not come back a third time. Because it didn't taste the same, right? So those recipe cards and the plate specs and the pictures are so valuable, so valuable.
I was listening to not to interrupt you there, but I think it's an important, like a relevant topic. I was listening to well, at the summit actually there at the Donald at the restaurant summit, they were talking about consistency of Chick-fil-A and why people go to Chick-fil-A's because you know that you're going there every single time and you're getting the same exact thing, and hence why they're so successful. I mean, there's people have different opinions, obviously, but
Yeah.
common knowledge is there's better chicken sandwiches out there, but you're not going to get that 8 out of 10 experience every single time unless you're going to Chick-fil-A.
Yeah, you know exactly
So
what to expect.
crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, like there's no surprises,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's remarkable, because it's
Right.
true. It's not that great of a chicken sandwich, but and that's the other thing I'm going to talk about a little bit right now since you brought that up. The smaller and mightier the menu, the easier and more profitable you can be. Do not have gigantic menus because you want to please everybody. And that's point in fact right there. Look how small their menu is. There are some of the best restaurants sell 5 or 6 things, because they do them really well over and over and over and over. I get these clients and they have pages and pages of food, and I'm like, I can't even imagine the prep on that. I can't imagine the inventory on that. I can't, like, you're just, every time you have a new item, that's more possibility for more loss. So, figure out what your stars are, like the things that everybody loves, and stick to it. Donald says, and I think this is an awesome example. He says, I think he uses the Rolling Stones as an example. If they put an album out, they don't put all 100 songs out. They put their top 12. You have to start thinking that way so you can be small and mighty and successful and repeat the same thing over and over and over so that people just love it. They will always find something they love. Get known for something that's just, Yeah.
Simplicity scales.
Yes, it does, for sure, especially this day and age, the other example of, ounce control. So think of like if someone's making a pizza and they have an actual 8-ounce cup for the cheese versus just taking a handful. My handful is different than your handful is different than, someone else's handful, or how much cheese should be on there. So having portion control in the kitchen, ladles with ounces, cups with ounces. If you have high expensive meats, have them already in little bags or little, what we had at the Indian restaurant, he had all of his chicken and his meat all in like little pints ready to go. And he had to pint them up in the prep kitchen, but he had them all ready. So the consistency was always there, and one of the other things is inventory, right? So inventory is huge. So I know for sure when I start taking inventory over at one of my restaurants, when I first learned inventory, I was so shocked at how much excess we had. So what happens is that managers and even owners, they're Monday morning, they're not at the restaurant, they're at home, and they're like, yeah, I probably need 12 cream, yeah, I'll order a case of cream, and I can't remember if there's any noodles. It's probably, maybe I'll order a case of noodles, or gosh, I don't remember this. Yeah, probably better be safe and order a case of cheese. And they're not doing any inventory. They're just winging it, completely winging it, making sure they have what they need. Because one, they're exhausted probably at home and they don't want to ride in. But the inventory is so primary because you'll walk in and you'll have 2 cases of cream. By the time it's used, it's gone. It's rotten. Or it's just money. Again, remember, it's money sitting on the shelf. So now you have 2 cases of macaroni and you didn't need those 2 cases of macaroni. So your food cost is out of the roof that week, right? So if you needed to actually pay a bill, you've bought a case of macaroni you didn't need. And that's just one item that happens all over the place. I've had bar managers order an entire, order 3 cases of vodka, but we're only going through, 16 bottles. Why order 3 cases? That wasn't a case deal. That wasn't the reason. Because they had no clue what they needed. They didn't do the bar inventory. They didn't do their shelf inventory. It was just easy. We'll always sell vodka. We'll always sell it, right? So the inventory is, I mean, it must be done. It's not even an option. It must be done every single week on the same day with a system, with PARs too. So PARs are what you think you're going to use in the week. And then the next column is what came in, right? Because if something comes in, now your inventory changes. So you have your inventory, you have your PAR at the front, and then you have your inventory for the week, and then you have a column for what comes in, because that has to be added into the inventory. So again, I'm telling you right now, tire companies take inventory of their tires because it's all they sell, right? Have to take inventory. I love that example because I went to Discount Tire a couple months ago. It's like thinking about that. It's like,
Yeah, I like tying different examples and analogies to things. I think it makes it really make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So a couple thoughts about inventory. Do you have any go-to softwares or programs? I mean, I'm sure there's a handful of them, but do you have any that you like the most or you see a lot of your clients using?
Getfilet.
Yeah.
GET Filet, FILLET, Getfilet. Yeah. I personally use that at my catering company and I like it. So they do inventory and food cost. So there's quite a few different modules in there that you can use for the whole kit and caboodle,
Yeah, I like that. I know a lot of our clients use Toast. Toast seems to be really crazy market penetration. I mean, I'm not exaggerating, about half of our clients are using Toast, which is a very large number.
I have mixed feelings about Toast right now.
Yeah. I know they have some like an app store and things like that. Is the Getfilet, does that integrate with the Toast platform? I know there's some stuff happening there.
Sure. I honestly don't know, but I know you can upload, like you can scan your invoices and it gets, it's right in there.
Yeah.
Yeah. But check it out. I mean, anybody who's listening to this, it's like $10 a month. It's not very expensive. The other thing is if you don't want to use an app or you'd rather use Excel. I started out with it. I mean, back then I didn't have apps, when I started my inventory, I owned my first restaurant when I was 27. I'm now 54. So you got to remember 27 years ago, we didn't have those apps. I just made my inventory in an Excel spreadsheet. I actually did my food costs in Excel spreadsheet. I made a master list. It was items in one column, and then it was how it was packed, and the case cost, the pound cost, and the ounce cost. And then I would make another sheet, and it would be like, the filet. And then I would take how many ounces I would from the master sheet, and I would make my plate with my mashed potatoes, my soy garlic, gravy, and I would make my own. So it's possible you can just do it yourself. It's not really hard math, it's basically, if you know pounds and ounces, you know how to do it.
Yeah. Interesting. I put the link to Getfilet in the chat there, guys, if you guys want to check it out. I don't think that Angela's making any referral bonuses off of you in here. So but that's a good idea, actually. We should become referral partners of them.
Great idea.
But no, there's a link in the chat box below. If you guys want to check it out. Looks like a
Yeah,
pretty nice
I also
website.
wanted to say about, you know, I have this thing where I like to be really, when you do it, when you look at your invoice yourself. So I'm gonna think back to my sushi restaurant. Okay. So at that time and place, the invoices would come into my invoice inbox, right? And I would pull the invoices out and I would get really intimate with the invoices because I wanted to know how much we're paying per pound for our fish. Because, you know, salmon's different than tuna, that's different than, you know, hamachi. And so I knew it was like $14.90 for tuna. And because I was so into it with my invoices and I was doing it myself, I would notice immediately if it went up, right? I'd be like, what, why is it $18.80 this week? You know? So sometimes apps or data entry things skip that part.
Mhm.
And you're not able to stay intimate with your costs because it's sort of like it's focusing on processing data and not giving you the information. So I would recommend you just looking at a week's full of invoices and get really intimate with what the cost of your stuff is. It's not going to take a lot of time. And make your own like little cheat sheet of what it currently is at, you know? Make a little Excel spreadsheet, just like this is what it costs per pound right now. If I ask any of you what your cost per pound of your tuna is, would you be able to tell me? I can tell you I could have told you then for sure. 100% for sure. And I think it's important. I think it's important you know what things cost in your restaurant.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, it's incredibly important. You know, it's just the fundamentals. I had a I had a someone asked me a few days ago, like, you know, what creative stuff are we going to be doing with marketing? I said we're not. We're going to be doing the fundamentals really well. You know, it's not
Yeah.
always about getting creative. It's just like doing the things that need to be done, you know, and
Yes.
then maybe you can get creative with it after they're at least just done.
That's the part I was talking about. That's the part I was talking about when I say that food costs get skipped because we get into the creative essence of our restaurant. We skip it and we're just like, how can we look cool? You know,
Yeah.
how can this be swank? You know, cool. That doesn't make, that's not actually going to make you the money. I mean, yeah, it's cool. People come back because it's cool. But at the end of the day, if you're not selling your food for the right amount of money, it doesn't matter how cool you are, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the stats of, I mean, every restaurant will go through a bunch of food, but I had a pizza client tell me how they went through, I forget the number, but it was, you know, tens of thousands of pounds worth of cheese uh, in a year. And it's like, wow, like if you have your pricing just, you know, a couple pennies even differently on going through that much cheese, you know, what's the saying? Big doors swing on little hinges.
Yep.
So there's a lot of money in that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So the other one is another one I can talk about is prep control. So I like to give real live examples. I had a Mexican restaurant sold a shitload of margaritas. I mean, if I just sold guacamole, salsa, margaritas, I'd still be in business. It's like, because we just sold so many of them. And obviously weekends, very busy with margaritas. And I would have a Thursday night bartender decide he's going to break down a whole case of limes. He's going to cut the entire case because he's getting ready for the entire weekend, right? What do you think those limes look like on Saturday?
Mm-mm.
Brown edges, slimy. I walk in, I'm throwing away quarts of limes, and I'm just not happy about it. And he thinks he's doing everybody a favor, right? He thinks he's getting ahead. And it really it's work on Thursdays, the same work to cut limes on Fridays, the same work to cut limes on Saturday. It doesn't take any longer. But you see when there's no prep control, how things have to get thrown out. And that's just limes. Another example would be chocolate pies. You know, if Laura decided she wants to make 10 chocolate pies, a gigantic batch of the chocolate pudding to make pies. And she makes 10 pies, but we go through 2 a week. So the other 8 are drying up in the cooler on the top shelf. she's not, if someone's not watching her and talking to her about pies and looking at sales mix and telling her how many we need a week, she's just out of this constant, I'm gonna prep to get all energized, and next thing you know, money's out the door.
Hmm.
And I don't think it's intentional. I think it's really, they think they're trying to just get ahead. They think they're getting ahead somehow,
Does that just come down to training?
It is training. It's all training.
Yeah.
It's sales mix. It's the kitchen manager looking at the sales mix and coming up with pars. It's training. It's the spec. It's right back to recipes. It's all that. It's all training. And I do, you know what? We were talking the other day about training. I highly recommend video training, because owners need to get their time back, right? They're always in the restaurant. So if you can put something on a video and you can train people on a video and not repeat yourself a gazillion times over and over on the same subject, why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you record it one time? And most of the people you're hiring are young, young adults between the ages of 21 and, or younger. They're used to learning on video. So I think training is a huge. Donald says we don't train to get it right. We train so they never get it wrong, or they can't get it wrong. That's true. You have to, training is primary, and it's exhausting.
Huge.
So make yourself some videos. You can do videos on Google videos, and then you can send them off to people to learn all different kinds of subjects. It could be, here are our core values. Here's how we present a check. Here, it could be any subject. You could just sit down in front. I could sit down right here and say, today, this subject is about how we present a check, or these are our core values. And I want to take the time today to talk to you about our core values. This is why we have core values. This is, and talk it out like you're actually talking to them. Come from a really authentic place about wanting to train them. When they hear it from the owner, it's different than, it's different. And then also about training, always pick a trainer, because there's consistency in the same person training, just like there's consistency in somebody making something. They're going to train the same way over and over and over. And you want the most patient person and most thorough person. It doesn't always need to be the person who's been there the longest. They just need to be very patient and very thorough. So, yeah. Yeah, training.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, is outdated food cost. So here's another great example. So when's the last time you did your food cost? Oh, like 3 years ago when we put the menu together. And I was like, so it's the same prices as 3 years ago? No, we had every year we had 50 cents. That is not food cost. That is guessing. That's 100% guessing. So you've got to actually do the work. And the thing is unless you measure something, you can't manage it. You must measure. And so you can actually make change. So you have an awareness.
Yeah, just doing it once is not, like you said, it's not good enough. How often would you recommend to take a look at the food costs and the pricing?
I would give it quarterly. Yeah, I would look at it quarterly. I had a business partner who ran the front of the house and I ran the back of the house. So I had time to do that more often. I was doing it, like I said, I would notice immediately, like week to week, I'm looking. I'm like, because I'm in the sushi business, it's rice, it's nori, it's fish. So fish is my primary, my primary protein. So I was very aware of how that was coming in. And also I would get on my vendors if they were like, you're raising it and you're not even talking to me about it. Like this is, I'm paying attention over here. And when you pay attention, they know you're paying attention, right? So important to make your vendors know you're paying attention, especially if it's like a fish purveyor and, where the prices can fluctuate, or they have the ability to fluctuate, like larger, like US Foods or like, Gordon's or whatever you use, Cisco, those kind of places are pretty standardized, but still, you gotta compare vendors too. You gotta keep them honest.
how would you approach your rep or your vendor if you're trying to get better pricing?
Yeah, I would, I would call them up and talk to my sales rep, and I'd say, when I start with you it's 14.90 and a week later it's 18.90. Like that's not, I can't even justify that, so, what, can you tell me why? Can you tell me why? And is there any room here to get us back down to where we started?
Mm,
You just have to like ask the hard questions. A
mhm.
lot of people are just afraid to ask those questions. At the end of the day, if you're not asking, you're not getting anywhere, you know.
Right, right, and be respectful too of them, and
Yeah, yeah, I know. I know I can come out looking a little direct because I am direct, but you know, I'm also respectful. So
right,
yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. If the rep likes working with you, there's always room. Usually, people always have a little bit of room, but
You know who gets the
so
room is the people who are paying their bills too. So you have to be
yes,
mindful of paying your bills, being timely with that.
totally.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you guys have any questions? Are you able to ask any questions out there?
Yeah, yeah. We got a question here coming in from Matthew. He just put it in the Q&A. Guys, if you have questions throughout here or towards the end or whenever you guys like, go in the chat box below and just toss in your questions there. And then if you want to talk, if you want to, if you want us to unmute you and you want to speak and ask a question that way as well, you can do that too. So just let us know in the chat box that you want us to unmute you, and we can do that happily. Matthew's question is, I'll put it here for everybody to see in the chat box as well. Matthew's saying, how would I figure out theoretical food cost for an ice cream shop with multiple flavors that each cost different amounts from the supplier? So how would you figure out theoretical food costs for an ice cream shop with multiple flavors, each having different amounts, each cost different amounts from the supplier? And then they scoop those at a given size at a given price. How would you
Okay.
approach that?
So, um, you would make a master list of each flavor, and you just told me each flavor costs a different amount, right? So then let's just say chocolate, for example, sounds like you're getting the ice cream made and sent to you, right? Can we get Matt up? I can't see
Yeah,
him.
let's see. Matt, I'm gonna unmute you if you're still with us here. Yeah, that's perfect. Matt, you are unmuted, my friend. How you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Awesome.
Doing well. Awesome. Thanks for joining us here.
Sure.
I just need some clarification. So the ice cream
No,
comes
you
to you
get it.
already made?
So yeah, we ordered from Hershey. We get Hershey ice cream, and so like we've got 36 different flavors that all cost different amounts, and
Mm,
then we've got different size scoops at different size at price at a given price. So each one goes through at a different amount, a different
right. So each one has its
rate,
own food
all
cost.
that, all that. So
Yeah. So each one will have its own food cost because they're not the same, right? It sounds like you're selling them all for the same price based off the scoop size. So like, let's just say chocolates,
right,
you know, $5 a pound and vanilla is $4 a pound, but if you get a scoop, it's the same amount, right? Cost of
right,
the, okay. So that means you'd have different food costs for each ice cream. And then that then gets transferred over to how you put your menu together, because the item that has the best food cost always gets listed first or last, because people look at the first and the top and the bottom of a list. So
okay.
there's menu engineering involved with making your menu more profitable. And there's a whole bunch of tricks to it. And but
And really, we don't have the flavors in the menu per se.
okay.
They're just as you come in the store, you can see them in the display cases. So
Okay, so I've actually never thought about that. I would think that things closer, interesting, in a display case.
Hmm.
Because there's probably some psychology around where to put the things you want to sell the most of based off of food cost, you know?
yeah,
First of all, let's just figure out the food cost.
right.
And then I would do a little diagram of your cooler where everything's always put in the same spot.
Everything's always put in the same spot. Yep.
Okay, and
We
I
have
would
a
do a little
diagram.
diagram of where everything's at based off of food costs, and then I would just kind of get, you know. I'm kind of like an intuitive person. I would stand on the other side and just kind of see what grabs people's attention and put those things that have the best food cost right where you think they're gonna see things first.
Okay.
That's how you do it on menu, right? And
Right.
if you're not, if that's basically your menu is your cooler.
Right.
Yeah, but you need to figure out your food cost of each item. And if something is outrageous, then it needs to be like an upcharge or something, you know, like. I don't know what it would be. Maybe something with nuts in it. I don't know, nuts expensive, but
Or, you know, we got a dairy-free oat based ice cream that's probably more expensive than everything else. So
yeah. So I mean, people are used to that with gluten-free and dairy-free. I have a daughter who's gluten-free and dairy-free. I always expect to have to pay more.
right.
So if someone said to me, that's an extra 75 cents, I would expect that.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure. So I would make yourself a master list and then do a drawing of your cooler. And then
Okay.
figure out where you're making your most money.
Cool.
Mhm.
Matthew, have you done that before?
I've not done that before. I mean, I've got a diagram of the cooler just so that people know where we want the things to go. Like we're hardly ever there. Like we own the place and we just kind of run it. We have management that actually runs the day-to-day operations. But you know, I also kind of have my hands on everything and make sure that everything is controlled. And so like we've got a diagram. Right now, everything's kind of split up dietary wise. So like anything with nuts are in the same cooler.
That makes sense.
Just so allergens aren't cross-contaminated. Anything with gluten is in one cooler, and you know, just to kind of make it so that again, there's not as much cross-contamination. So
Yeah, I bet like the sorbets are similar in pricing and the nut ones are similar in pricing. Like maybe you could, you know, by doing the food cost for each item, you'll start seeing a pattern.
okay.
And then and then maybe it's possible that you could have sections with certain prices per scoop based
Okay.
off of their actual food costs if they're similar, you know.
Yeah,
So
because
maybe
what I've done so far is just basically take an average of what is there, and that's how I came up with my pricing.
I
Rather
would
than
not do that with things that are, I wouldn't do that. I would definitely think about upcharge for things that are, you know, cost more.
sure.
Ice cream is one of those things where it's like, you know, like when the moment you decide to go for ice cream, things like hands up, right? Like you've made a decision, you're getting it, you
Right.
know? So I would not be afraid to charge people what you need to charge people. And that goes with, like, I've talked about this before, like, what's the point of doing it if you're not going to do it to make money, like to actually make a living?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
It's not a hobby, you know, it's not a, like, it could end up being a hobby, but, you know, I like to call it a restaurant revolution where we're actually charging what we're supposed to be charging and stop bleeding ourselves to death, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I had to change my pricing this year.
Good. I'm glad to hear that.
And so yeah, basically we had an accountant that was telling me I was making X amount of money and I wasn't, according to the bank account. And so I was like, all right, well, I don't have hardly any food waste. You know,
No, I bet you don't.
my employees, you know, I keep a fairly lean crew. And so where's my money going? And I just kind of figured out, all right, well, it's basically food costs. And my food cost was off. And so when I raised my prices, now we're making what the accountant was saying that I was making. I fired that accountant, by the way, because that was ridiculous to me. Anyways, but yeah, no, thanks. That's very helpful to kind of figure out, to kind of wrap my head around, because I always struggle with that, you know, how do I do it when I've got all different prices But yet everybody coming into an ice cream shop expects, you don't get a different price for a different ice cream, not really. I can see that for like an oat or a dairy free or some sort of specialty thing, but not
Yeah, yeah.
for the most part. You
I
get
bet you will have categories though, like I'm curious if you were to line them up by food cost, if you end up with some sort of categories like sorbets or sherbets, or I don't even know if you do sherbets, but sorbets, or dairy freeze, and the ones with nut and caramel and all the all the goodies in it.
right.
They're similar, you know.
Yeah, so we just so I can wrap my head around this as well. So Angela, are you thinking that he would have like different, like all the flavors and like everything is different prices, or would it be
You
like
get
maybe like
categories.
categories? Yeah, 4 or
Yeah,
5
big
categories.
category, 4 or 5 categories, yeah, based off his food costs. So in my mind, I was thinking like, um, it doesn't sound like you have any signs of any sort. Or I don't know if you have it on paper or what, but
I
like,
mean, we've got signs saying this is the scoop size, and this is, I mean, this is what you get. This is how much each scoop size is. This is how
so,
much each additional one is, and for our Sundays and different things like that. But
yeah. So I was thinking like one category would be like nuts and more, or like,
sure,
and then another category is sorbets, and another category is simple. I don't know. Like I would come up with some like cute word for like simple, like vanilla would be that way, or just like a very simple,
sure.
you know. So I'm just trying to think of ways for you to do that would and then maybe nuts and more. What's your scoop cost right now for like one single?
How much do we charge?
Yeah.
Uh, we charge $4.50 for a small scoop.
Okay. So
We
let's
have
just
we actually have small, medium, and large. We're different than most ice cream shops that way.
so I also have something to say about that too. So um my theory is that you want to get the most out of every transaction. You want to get the biggest cash flow out of every transaction. So sometimes you undercut yourself when you offer small, medium, large, because if someone offers me medium, I might take medium if my options only. If I only had small or large, I would probably opt for large because small is too small. But now it's like, okay, so if it's 450 and 550 and 650, you're giving them an option to reduce your check average by $1. I'm
Right,
suggesting the less choices they have, that they're in a dilemma, right? So they either have to go small or large. And if I'm going for ice cream and I'm not on a diet, right? It's one or the other. So I guess what I'm saying is I don't know if I like the medium option. I'm gonna be honest.
okay,
I think that you want to move people to the highest check average you possibly can, you know?
okay,
An example would be like sometimes I see people do like a half order of something and a full order and everything. And I'm like, well, if you're gonna give me the option for a half order, I'm gonna take it. But I'd also
right.
take a full order, but it's only because you offered me the half order that I'm taking it, you know? So I have a little bit of like, I would always just think about that. Think about how that affects it,
Okay,
your check average. Because raising check averages is the point of this, right? Every transaction by more money is more cash flow.
right.
So anyways, that was a different subject, but your nuts and more, let's just say for simplicity's sake, chocolate's 450, and that runs at what does chocolate run at right now? What's your food cost?
Food costs is for chocolates probably about 20%.
Okay. And something with nuts and caramel and chocolate and all that, what does that run at?
Probably about 30%.
30%. Okay. So let's just say for shits and giggles that it's $4.50 for the 20% one, and I would do I would do like literally be like $4.75 in the other category, or $5 in the other category, and I put all those in the same category,
Okay,
you know, because I just don't. I don't like the averaging thing. I just don't. I think that it's dangerous. And also I don't like the medium thing. I think you need to push people to a large.
okay,
I mean, you
cool,
offer,
thanks.
you know.
Right.
So,
No, thank you. That's been helpful because that's been something that's been on my mind for a while, is how do I figure that out? So,
yeah. And then you can put those by each other in the case too.
yeah, absolutely.
I think people are gonna understand that. Like, there's a big difference between a simple ice cream and one with nuts and chocolate and caramel and toffee and, like peanut butter
Right.
cups, all the stuff that's inside of it. I don't think that's unreasonable.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome, Matthew. Does that help? Anything else you wanted to clarify?
No, that's it. Thank you so much.
Okay. Yeah, of course. Thanks for jumping on. All right, I got another question coming on in here. Robin's asking, how do you figure out our theoretical food cost? We have an all-you-can-eat soup and salad bar. Theoretical food cost for all-you-can-eat options.
That is a good question. I have never done an all-you-can-eat food cost. Robin, I'm gonna have to get back to you. I'm gonna have to ask the master. I'm gonna have to ask Donald about that. I don't actually know that answer because, well, I mean, you could figure out your theoretical because, you know, if a case of lettuce costs you, $25 and it's, 48 ounces, you can do the ounce cost. And then you can do one salad cost. Like if someone were to, if you, this is like you don't know how much you're putting on their plate. That is a really
Yeah,
good
you're going
question.
back, to the averages thing, huh? Like
You're going back to the
what
averages. Yeah.
what does someone get on average? Yeah.
Yeah. Um, can't say that I like the all you can eat option. To be honest, it freaks me out a little bit. Robin, can you leave your phone number in the chat, and I'm gonna talk to Donald, and I can give you a call.
That'd be great. I've got another question coming on in here. Yeah, so Robin, if you want to leave your email and or phone, toss that in the chat box there. We've got a question coming in from Sony. Sony's asking how to calculate theoretical food cost.
Okay. So, can you put Sony on?
Let's see. Sony, do you want to get on live here? Sony, I've enabled you to unmute yourself if you want to chat.
So
Yes.
Sony, hi Sony. So what do you sell? What do you sell?
We sell chicken, six wings, 6 piece, 10 piece, 20 piece, all about chicken. So
Okay.
we sell like wings or fried chicken, whole chicken. So it's all about chicken.
All right, perfect. So you get a case of wings. How much does it cost you?
Case is about 110.
How much is that? I'm sorry.
$110.
110. How many wings on do you know how many wings come in a case? Does it have pieces?
About 300, I believe.
Okay. So you figure out the piece, how much it costs per piece, right?
Yeah.
Then you multiply it by how many are in order. Right.
Right.
So that would be your cost for that order.
That's the theoretical.
Yep. And then you need to divide it by what you sell it for. Okay. So
Okay.
this is the first. What does it cost per case? Write that down. How many pieces in the case? Then you know what it costs per piece. Multiply it by how many pieces are in the order. And that is what it costs you per actual order.
Okay.
Does that make sense to you?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay.
This is very, very important for you. Like, there is no way you can price something out unless you know what this is. So,
Right.
so let's just say it ends up being, so what is that math? Let's just do that really quick. All right. So what you said, 110, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it's 36 cents a wing, right? Yeah,
I
don't forget you
see.
have to add the sauce cost, okay? But let's just talk
Yeah.
about first, okay? So, and you have six in an order, 3 times 36 cents is $2.16. So if you wanted 20% food cost, you multiply it by 5, you have to sell it for $10.80.
Yeah. Okay. But that, did you include
It's
the
just the
sauce?
chicken.
No.
Now the sauce comes in liquid. Is it made? Do you make it or is it come made?
Some of them we make, some of them we buy.
Okay, so let's say it's 32 ounces. So let's say it's $5 for 32 ounces. Right? How many ounces are in a serving?
2 ounce.
Okay, so you take it's 15 cents an ounce times 2. So it's 30 cents per ounce. If it were $5. I don't know what it costs you for your container and how many ounces, okay? But you take,
Yeah.
you see what I'm doing? I'm pulling out the ounce cost and then I'm turning around and multiplying it by however many ounces I'm serving.
Okay.
So always
Yeah.
figure out the ounce cost or the piece cost. That's why I asked you about how many pieces come in actual order. You see how the difference between a case of chicken is how many pieces, because you're selling it by piece, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's different than ounce. And then the liquid or the sauce is ounces because that's how you're serving it. So you gotta add that ounce cost plus the chicken cost. What does that cost? Multiply it by 5 for 20% if that's the food cost you're going for, right? And then there's always a packaging cost you have to think about. That doesn't necessarily have to be put into the food cost, but you need to think about it because it could be 10 cents for a piece of wax, the actual container, maybe 3 cents for the little wax paper, or the little solo cup. What does that cost for you to put the sauce in? You need to think about all the paper bag that's being served in,
Cutlery.
cutlery, if they need that, napkins, I'm guessing, because their fingers are going to have that sauce all over it.
Awesome. All right.
What
Thank
I
you.
would do, for you guys, what I would do too is like, it's a really big mountain to climb. It's a big mountain to climb. So I would make my master list first, which is the item, how it comes packed, how many pieces or ounces, broken down to ounce or piece, make my master list. And then I would actually start with my very most popular item, because that's the thing that's selling the most, right? You got to get that one right. You gotta get them all right, but you gotta start there. And then I would go to my second and my third. I would just keep going down and doing every single item. And then with liquor, it's how many ounces in the bottle and how much does that cost for that amount of ounces? And then if it's a 2 ounce pour or a 1.5 ounce pour, it's how many drinks you get out of the bottle. And you literally can say to yourself, okay, so if I sold all these drinks times, the value, this is what this bottle is worth. This bottle is worth $300. It's not worth what you bought it for. It's worth what you sell it for. That's what I mean about money on the shelf. Like, you literally need to look at everything, multiply it by 5 in your head and be like, okay, that's what it's worth to me. I always just use 5 for 20% because I think it's a really good food cost, but that's not always what you can actually do. Because there's food cost, there's what the market will bear, but you do need to know what the food cost is.
Thank you.
And thank you, Sony. Angela, for those who are maybe just starting with trying to measure their theoretical food cost, in this example, you had said, okay, let's just start let's say 20% food cost. As you just mentioned, sometimes market forces, you're not always going to be able to get the 20% food cost. Maybe it's something different. How would you recommend, where do you start? Should you start at 20 and then see where that lands you? Or how would you approach it if you're starting from scratch?
Yeah, I always start at 20 and then I figure out what we can actually do from there. But the biggest thing what you're trying to do is make sure that you don't have something out there that's like 50% or 40%. You had no awareness of it, right? And it's selling like hotcakes.
Mhm.
So it's really establishing what your stars are. So we call this stars, which is sells a lot and has a great food cost. What your dogs are, which are things you want to completely avoid, right? Your challenge, what a dog is, it sells a lot, but has an awful food cost. And then you have your challenge, which are things that are like, I'll give you an example. One of my clients sells duck wings instead of chicken wings. I consider that a challenge.
Mm.
It shows that they're creative, but probably not going to sell, you know? And what am I missing here?
Does sound pretty good though.
Workhorse, yeah. Workhorse is it's popular, but doesn't have the best food cost. So
Mm.
you gotta establish what I have the clients do is I have them take their actual menu, print it out, figure their food cost out, literally write it right next to the item, and then either do a star, a C, a D, or a W, and figure out, literally look at your menu and say, okay, what I got going on here? What is, and the stars are things that should be listed first. Like so let's just say you have a column of appetizers and you have a column of salads and you have a column of mains, and then you have traditional or something like that, or creative or whatever. Each of those columns, first of all, should not have more than 7 items in them because that's overload. Let's say 5 is probably the even better sweet spot. The top and bottom of each of those columns are the best spot to have your stars, because that's what people see. They notice the first and last, and the stuff that's maybe not going to make you the most money is shoved in the center. And I mean, there's so many things about menu engineering that we teach in the restaurant growth coaching. That's just, one little, there's so many things about your menu that can change the profitability, because, okay, so now you sell food, but now how you present it and how you sell it on your menu is the next step of being profitable. It's not just a list with prices on the right. You don't even want them to notice your pricing. You want that, tuck that in underneath where they're not going to see it in the actual description, because we don't want them focusing on price. We want them focusing on the product. And then there's the whole thing where people get too creative with the names, and people can't even figure out what you're selling, because you're like, this is the helicopter. And then it's like the description is like some creative description. And it's like, it's just a Reuben. Just make it a Reuben where people know it's a Reuben. Like, don't that might be a bad, but that's kind of what I kind of did that intentionally, because sometimes I get these menu items and I'm like, why don't you just call it a Reuben? You don't have to be overly creative to sell something. In fact, the more familiar something sounds, the more likely I'm going to order it. Again, another part of the extreme menu makeover that we do with restaurant growth. It's like incredible what you can learn in that program.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack, isn't there? There's a lot of different.
There's so much to unpack about food costs. Yeah, it's like we could be talking for hours on this.
Yeah, we'll be here for days. Tony's got a question, or maybe a question. Tony says, I got gorditas. Some of the fillings cost way more, like steak costs way more. Tony, could you clarify what the question is regarding what you put in here? See if we can help you out. If anybody else has any other final questions, we've got just a few moments to wrap up the call. But Angela, this is great. I really appreciate you coming on and sharing some thoughts about this stuff.
I think what he's saying is, I know what a gordita is, and I know that the fillings cost different. Okay, so this brings me right back, Tony, to when their steak comes in, I'm guessing it's skirt steak, likely, or ground beef, or whatever it is. It's going to come with a case cost or a pound cost, and then you figure out your ounce cost. How many ounces are in a pound? So you get your ounce cost, and then I'm guessing that you probably use someone in the prep kitchen is using their hand to make these. So I would get them some kind of vessel that they're going to use the exact same amount each time. And that might bug the crap out of them, but that's just the standard. Okay. Whether it's a quarter cup or an 1/8 cup, and you measure it. Now you say to yourself, okay, it's an 1/8 cup. How many ounces is that? Right? So that ends up being your ounce cost for steak is different than your ounce cost for ground beef. And I think what you're saying is you probably charge the same amount for each item. Like the steak and the ground beef might be the same amount for a gordita, but it costs more for the steak. Well, then I recommend that you have separate pricing for each of those items if they're that different. If they're like 20 and 21, maybe not. But if they're 20 and 30, absolutely, they have to have different price. It's like you're trying to do everybody favors here. You don't need to do anybody a favor. You don't want to overcomplicate it, but you also just need to, you could say like gordita is $2 and you can do like plus 50 cents on the steak below. So you don't have to list $2.50, $2.70. You know what I mean? There's ways to do it where you can just do a plus something for steak. Everybody should know that steak and seafood is going to cost more. First of all, everybody in this call knows that when they go out, steak and seafood is going to cost more. That's no surprise. Chicken, pork, ground beef, maybe not so much. But anytime someone's ordering steak, they should plan on paying for steak. They're ordering seafood, they should plan on paying for seafood. You know, they're ordering gluten-free, dairy-free, they'll pay for it because they don't want their kids sick.
I love it. Well, anything else you want to close with?
Just measure. You know, that's the biggest thing is like you measure your stuff so you know, so you can make change, you know, so you actually can manage it. If you don't measure it, you can't manage it. You just shoot in the dark. And, you know, the truth is that the food is what you sell. It's how you make money. Every single piece of food and liquor is worth, I mean, it's money sitting on your shelf. And, my goal is to make you profitable so you can get your life back and have, you know, not be in that restaurant 24/7. And that's through systems. Like once you set the system up, it takes the time to set the system up, right? So set the system up and then it's just updating here and there. So take the time and do it. And like I said, don't try to do the whole mountain at once because it'll become overwhelming. Do your master sheet first, figure out your ounces first, your case costs, your pound cost, your ounce cost, and then go pick your most popular item. Do that one first. And you know what's going to happen? You're going to do one and you're going to be excited about what you find. And it's going to be interesting. And then you're going to want to do the next thing and then do the next thing. And then next thing you know, you'll be done.
Mm-hmm. Measure.
Yep.
Well, Angela, this is great as always. Appreciate you joining me. Anybody else who's on the call, a couple of things for you. If you're a current client of ours already, and you're interested in getting a certified restaurant coach, having a one-on-one coach to help you increase profitability in all these different ways we're talking about, just send us a message on Slack. If you've got Slack, if you're a client of ours, just send us a message and we can set you up or have a conversation about it in more detail. If you're only a webinar client of ours, if you're not like a full client, I put a link in the chat box below where you can go ahead and schedule a call if you're interested in getting some more one-on-one help. Put a link down there. The coaching program also has a guarantee. So we guarantee a 5% increase in profit margin in 90 days or less. So a lot of our clients do the coaching program for many, many months, many, many years in some cases. But again, if you're looking for help, you know, I say one of the best ways to get the help you need is by hiring and partnering up with someone who's already done it. Angela, you've done it before, or other restaurant coaches have done it. You know, it's like if you were to want to build a social media company and you could have Mark Zuckerberg help you build it, probably in a pretty good likelihood of succeeding, right? Who else better to hire to help you? So this is a similar way. So anybody can go ahead and schedule a call there if you want to. And then Sony, yes, the recording will be in your webinar portal. So there's a webinar portal. If you don't know where to find that, or if you lose the link, you can always just go to our homepage, restaurantgrowth.com, and then you can click on login, and you can find the webinar group there. So, yeah, guys, that's all for us today. Appreciate you all for being here. Angela, thank you so much. And
welcome.
the
Thank
webinar
you.
recording will be up in about 24 hours or so.
All right. Sounds great.
Okay. Thanks for your time,
Bye,
guys.
everybody.
See you later. Thanks, Angela.